This week we're talking about the Hamilton real estate market, interest rates, and our favorite restaurants in Hamilton. Welcome back, guys. Thank you so much for joining us this week. I'm joined by a very special guest, Iavarone from Team Grande, Remax Escarpment. Thanks for joining us, Albert.
Thank you, Justin. I finally made it. Finally made it. I'm on the podcast. I hope this isn't the pinnacle of my career, but super happy to be here and join you.
That might be the pinnacle. I don't know,
Yeah,
though.
it
You
could
might
be.
recognize Albert from Instagram. He's the guy shooting the finger guns at you. We're so happy to have him on. As you know, if you follow along, Brandy is still on her honeymoon, which was a great party a couple weeks ago. Please
Congratulations.
forgive us for the black screen. There was a flood in our studio, so we can't figure out how to get this thing going right now. We're hoping it's still working, but hopefully by next
Personalities
week.
are going to fill the screen for you. We're
Bright
getting a
enough.
lot of educational information.
Said it's a good thing we both wore white. I didn't even tell you what to wear white. Normally we
I'm in tune.
That's
We're in tune.
normally we just say don't wear black, but this white, look at that, we're vibrant. I got the orange hat, Hamilton Forge FC, just to pick it up. But
I almost wore the Cats jersey. I almost
You
wore the
should've.
Tiger Cats jersey. It was black. I thought a little bit ahead. It had to look a little bit more professional. But here we are.
that's it. You got a collared shirt on. I don't think I've ever worn a collared shirt on this show.
It's linen.
We always keep it casual. But let's jump into what people, I guess, are tuning in for to listen to the stats of the Hamilton real estate market. Like, we've seen a pretty good decline. I mean, the amount of sales, 19.2% is what we're down.
It's been tough, right? It's been a tough outlook. I know. Certainly, I'm getting a lot of questions about kind of where it's going and where it is, and people are wondering where bottom is and kind of what's happening, because it really is it's a bit of a frozen market, I think, right now, right? I mean, we're seeing showings down and whatnot, and I think buyers are a little bit cautious and investors are a little bit cautious, and people are wondering what's happening here. Certainly,
definitely
it's
is.
a bit of a strange time, right? Based
Like-
on where interest rates and whatnot are.
We had a team meeting yesterday and we were talking about it, and even though we're down 90% in the last 30 days in terms of sales. So what that means is basically 1 out of 5 buyers over the last month just said either, hey, I'm going to sit back and wait,
Yeah.
or they just couldn't get approved, right?
Yeah.
With the newer interest rate, which is a real thing that happens when these interest rates go up, right? Like, what can you qualify for? But one interesting thing we were talking about was how over the year, things went down, sales went down, we're down about like 30%, whatever, in sales. But last year, 1 out of every 4 buyers, 26% were investors.
Yeah.
So I think that those investors pulled out, and I think that has a large part to do in that.
Absolutely, that's what's actually freezing. Because if you look at what investors are looking at, right? Like, investors are generally looking at what their cost of capital is. So as interest rates go up, and they're also, investors are looking at, and they're saying, well, interest rates, for one, investors are saying interest rates are going to continue to rise, so they're holding. But also, when they're looking at getting into the market and making that investment, they're basing the value of their investment based on their own cost of capital, right? So as interest rates now have almost doubled, I think, from the low, right? We're at the 5-year fix, we're over 5%. So they have a look at that. They say, well, the cost of capital is this, so the value of an investment property is associated with that. So that's why you're seeing the perceived value of investment properties is down pretty significantly,
And
kind of
that's,
based on that number.
and you have a few listed right now. What do you have listed? Was it 16
Yeah,
units?
yeah. I've got an 8-unit multiplex in Burlington listed, a 6-unit in Burlington listed, and a triplex in Burlington listed. But it's the same thing, right? Like, you're looking at cost of capital, and then associating that with cap rate. So, for example, the challenge we're up against is an investor's looking at the cap rate and saying, okay, you're asking me to pay, for example, a 4.5% cap rate on the property I'm buying. And for those of you who might not understand what cap rate's basically the return on your money, right? So based on basically the income that the property is generating. So if it's at a 4.5% cap rate, that means the money you've put in, you're getting 4.5% return per year. It's basically almost like a 4.5% interest. The challenge that investors have right now is they're saying, well, if you're asking 4.5%, for example, in Burlington, well, they're saying, well, I can get a GIC right now at 4.6. GIC is no risk.
And you don't have to deal with tenants.
You're not dealing with tenants. It's no risk, right? Now, maybe you don't have some of the upside and all the appreciation upside and things like that. But that's kind of where, where investors are coming from right now when they're looking at this market and saying, hold on, like our cost of capital is changing a lot. Not only that, I don't know, we can talk about this maybe a little bit later, but even when you look at kind of the outlook for the rest of the year, interest rates are going to continue to rise for the remainder of 2022 in all probability, right? Just basically having a look at inflation and kind of the macroeconomics, what's happening in the world, what's happening in Ukraine, the price of fossil fuels, that trickles down through an entire economy, right? And it touches everything.
Which we'll touch on in the next segment. But let's jump back into these market stats of where we're at. Like with the average price came down in the last 30 days. It came down, what, 5%? Overall through RAB?
We're down in some areas of Hamilton. We're up over a 30% decrease from the peak in February.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So it's down pretty significantly. Now, but really, it is down. And so for anyone who bought and sold kind of during that period, I always say there's a trade space, right? Most buyers and sellers, you're buying a house and you're selling a house. So if you're buying in a high market, you're selling in a high market. It's the ones that get caught in between, maybe that can affect. But the important thing to note there is, it's down 36% from the peak, but it's up 9% from this time last year.
Exactly. That's the big
thing.
thing.
So anyone who's bought in the last couple of years, you've still gotten good gains, but what's happening is the market's pulling back. I guess the question is where bottom is now.
That's it, and who knows, right? One interesting number 2, average days on market is up to 17 days now, which is pretty much, that was unheard of over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
We were seeing average days of 7, 8 days, but now 17 days.
We're not used to it, and sellers aren't used to it, and it's the same thing, right? You look at inventory, right? We got in some areas, it's basically the same across all the markets here in Southern Ontario, right? You're between 2 and 3 months of inventory. So that's between that and days on market, that's a big change for where sellers have been over the past couple of years. So I don't know, this is the challenge I have, right? When I'm speaking to myself, like, what are you saying to your sellers now?
It is what it is. I mean, like, we're looking at, with an average day, 17 days on market, our sold index, which the sold index is basically how many appointments it takes for a property to sell. Remax provides us with these stats, and we see that it takes about 13 appointments for a property to sell. So, I mean, if you're listed for more than 17 days, you've had the 13 or more appointments, then what do you adjust? You have to adjust the price, right? And I mean, they're talking like this episode, the time filming it, what's the date today, the 7th?
Yeah.
So like, this is not going to come out till next week, but the interest rates, July 13th, they're making another announcement. They're even talking like 0.75. So we'll see what that does, right? And then you touched on months of inventory, which is something we actually talk a lot about on this show. If you're new to tuning in, months of inventory essentially is how long it would take for all the homes on the market to sell, given no other properties get listed. So February was 0.7, like it was 3 weeks. Now was 2.7, I think is the number, right? So I mean that's a huge jump, right?
The reality is, it's been a seller's market for 3.5, 4 years, right? And a heavy seller's market. So we're accustomed to things selling in 5, 6, 7 days or less. We're just getting back. Those of us who are of a certain vintage, right? We remember what it was like to sell a house, and it wasn't 5, 6, 7 days. It was a couple of months.
Yeah.
Right. So now it's back to educating sellers again and educating them on the fact that it's going to take a couple of months to sell your house, and we have to price it right.
I know. I always talk about that. Like when I first started the average days, like I'm 10 years now. I can't believe 10 years in this business, how quickly it went by. But I remember you're going in expecting 60 days on the market, sometimes 90 days. Like it all depended, on the house. So.
And now, in the recent past, right, it sits for 2 weeks, and the seller's anxious.
Yeah. They're getting anxious in 3 days. They don't get a showing in the first day. What's going on? Right?
So it's an adjustment period.
We've been
right
spoiled.
Now. I think it's an adjustment
spoiled,
period for everybody. But this is kind of just one of those. It's just one of those periods we got to ride through and kind of see where we're gonna end up, right? So that's, I think we need to talk about a little about is interest rates and kind of where is bottom and whatnot, and kind of where I don't know. Like I'd say to you, Justin, for example, if you look forward now to January 2023. If you take your crystal ball and you have a look through, I mean, what's your, what are you seeing?
So we're talking about the interest rates or the market?
The market, the interest rates.
So I think
however you want to take
with the market,
right?
I went through this in 2017. I remember that we saw the stress test came in and interest rates went up. I remember that 2017, February, it was like the peak too, was back then. And then we saw silence until all through 2018. And then 2019, it started to come back. And by the end of 2019, we were really swinging. And then COVID, right?
Yeah,
And then it kind of stopped. And then, so I don't know. We could be seeing,
So I
we
don't,
could be coming out of this in 2023, right?
Yeah.
But what do you guys think of the market? Let us know. Be sure to drop a comment below with any questions you have about this market. We'd love to hear.
It's a great topic because I actually don't correlate it as much to 2017, because to me, when they put the stress test in and everything in 2017, I mean, that was put in to cool the real estate market specifically, okay? Now we have to look at why interest rates are rising right now. Interest rates rising right now, they're not rising because of the real estate market. The real estate market is just a casualty of this, right? Interest rates are rising because of inflation. And you know, inflation's at a point now, it's still well over 7%.
Over 7,
we haven't been here since the 90s.
Wow.
And in the 90s, when it was 7% inflation, interest rates were over 10%, 12%.
So you remember this, right? 'Cause
So
you
I
were, what, in
remember
your
this.
early
I'm not
30s
quite
or-
that old, but you know, I was looking for my first home, kind of in that
Yeah.
in that territory, and interest rates spike. So for me, I'm seeing it more through that lens. I'm seeing it more through the inflation lens than I am specifically through the real estate lens. Anyone who's got a stock portfolio, you're experiencing the same thing with your stock portfolio as we're experiencing here in the real estate market now, right? So what my personal outlook is, I'm looking at this and saying, well, one, this is largely driven by actually the war in Ukraine, right? Because that's what's affected the price of fossil fuels and everything else. And you're seeing inflation rates. Look, they're not a Canadian thing right now, right? They're a global thing. So they're grappling with this in the US, they're grappling with this in Europe and whatnot. And the only way that you can really effectively combat inflation and get inflation under control is really by throwing a handbrake on and spiking interest rates hard. Hard. And
you brought up a good point yesterday, like we were talking about it. You talk about like the rates going up. Is this actually going to bring prices down? And then you had a thought process that, because I have no background in that sort of like economic study, but you brought something to light that I thought that actually makes a lot of sense, like you were talking about.
Yeah, it's kind of supply and demand, right? So there was a point that was made. So you get generally it's the price of fossil fuels that drives everything, right? Because you use petroleum and fossil fuels to produce plastics, you name it, right? It trickles down through the whole economy. It brings prices up. Now, a colleague of ours said, okay, so now, for example, the price of a pizza has gone up in a pizzeria, right? As the price of fossil fuels comes down, maybe the price of some of those raw materials comes down. Is there really any incentive now for vendors to reduce their own prices, right? So as consumers, we're going to get hit for a while.
Yeah, you're thinking our price, like who's going to lower their price now that it's been set to that price for a pizza?
You're trying to get it back. If anything, you're trying to crawl it back, right? So, but really, and to a large extent, you're right. Like a lot of vendors aren't necessarily just going to reduce the price. But what that does is if they don't reduce the price and the price of your raw materials has come down, well, now there's more margin in that business, right? So yeah, you're getting more profit out of that business, but now there's more margin. There's more room for competition to enter in. So then you'll start to see some undercutting, and then things will normalize. But that comes with a lag, right? So interest rates can come down, or the price of fuel and whatnot can come down, and prices may lower. But as consumers, we're still going to get hit for another year and a half, kind of after that, until competition can actually normalize that back.
What's your prediction with interest rates until we see a stabilization, or not even a decrease, just a stop in the hikes? Do you have any idea, sort of, what do you think with that?
I think, look, there's a lot of pressures here right now because, one, inflation's out of control. They got to hit that handbrake. At the same time, we're a debt-reliant society in the West, right? So, we can't necessarily afford high interest rates for a long period of time. My sense is they're going to continue to hit interest rates hard, probably for the remainder of 2022. I think as soon as you see inflation start to level off and starts to dip, then you're going to see a fairly rapid decrease again in interest rates, just to generate some relief and stimulate spending. Because the real risk here is we're going to end up in a recession, right? Which I think we probably will end up. I think it's almost
sort of
unavoidable that we're gonna land in a recession. But my guess is again, I think we're going to continue with interest rate rises through the remainder of 2022, 2023. I think we start to see them come down a little.
And that's the thing. Like, we're all talking. We think 2023 will be the stop. But like, is it going to be the start? Is it going to be the fall? Who knows how long we're going to see till it actually starts to come back down? Because I mean, it will come back down, right?
It'll come back down. But what we got from a real estate perspective, though, is right. Real estate's a leading indicator. So right now, right, one of the reason why you're seeing prices fall as interest rates go up, although inflation is still high, inflation still rises because it's a leading indicator. So the fact that real estate prices are falling fairly sharply tells you that the interest rate raises are working, right? So it's a leading indicator. At the same time, real estate prices will also be a leading indicator on the other end. So as the economy starts to bounce back and inflation a little bit out of control, I think you'll see a pretty sharp bump again on real estate prices, because we haven't even talked about inventory.
No.
So like there's a hard floor here, right? It's not a you know, I don't know where rock bottom is right now price wise. What I do know is, regardless of what's happening with interest rates, there's still a housing shortage in the market. Right? So there's still people looking for places to live. It's not like there's an abundance of supply, right? There's still a supply-demand issue.
But so you know what though, in terms of new listings though, if you look at it from the stats came out last month, we are still pretty high for the last 2 years compared to the last 2 years, right? But still like at an all-time low. Like it's still super low, right? The amount of listings that are on the market. And I don't know, I think just even like sometimes I don't even know if it's actually the interest rate themselves that are dropping the price, or it's the talk about the interest rate. Like people talk about the rates are going up. I'm going to wait. I'm going to sit back. And I think that's where we're losing our 1 out of every 5 buyers is people kind of taking a back seat.
It's also a little bit of it's
maybe it goes lower and then I can get a deal.
And right? It's also a little bit of it's a confluence of events too, because we were in a little bit of a I hate to call it a real estate bubble because demand's so high for housing. So I don't think it was necessarily a bubble, but anytime you've got 30-40% increases, you know, like we saw in 2021 and 2022, well, that was bound to give some back. So I think even independent of interest rates, I think that was, you're starting to see a lot of fatigue on the side of buyers. For sure. So I think it was going to give some of that back anyway in the back half of 2022. Now add in interest rates and inflation and kind of everything else. Well, okay, so now we've got the situation that we're in.
And there's a different type of buyer emerging now. Like one thing that I'm seeing a lot of my buyers that have jumped back in were people that didn't want to compete, just refused. You know, you get those people that think like, I don't want to go into competition. I don't want to go against 10 offers, 15 offers. I'm actually starting to find clients now, I'm getting calls to go show properties to people that are saying, yeah, I like this because now I can buy a house on financing, on 100%. Home inspection.
Yeah, and I've got first-time buyers that were locked out in January and February and December. They just threw their hands in the air and you know, they couldn't get into the Hamilton market at all. Now all of a sudden they're all getting in. Yeah. Right? So there's positives and negatives here. For most, you know, for some people it's a negative, but for some people like first-time buyers that have been frozen out of the market, it's actually a positive. Prices are down. Like you can get into Hamilton now. You can get in for well under $500,000. You can get into the market, right? And if it wasn't anywhere near that in February. Yeah,
and you look at some of the cities that have been hit the hardest, and it's really like Hamilton's, I don't know what we would call them, ancillary cities like Beamsville, Grimsby, Binbrook. Yeah. Binbrook is taking a pretty hard hit right now. Super high levels of inventory there. They were at what, 4 months of inventory?
4 months of inventory.
That's crazy. That's nuts. We haven't seen 4 months of inventory since, I think 2017 was the last time it crept kind of around that mark, but that's just for Binbrook. So I think because a lot of people went out there because it was affordable, but now that jobs are moving back to the GTA, people can buy in Hamilton.
Well, they're thinking, you know, and I don't have the numbers in front of me for the GTA, but it was an interesting. Someone mentioned an interesting stat is that actually the prices in downtown Toronto haven't dropped as significantly as the surrounding areas, and you know, I guess the question is why, but I think it's pretty clear to me at least. I think during COVID, everyone was moving out of the GTA, and that was kind of fueling your price growth in areas outside that. Now as people go back, so they already basically had their value decrease kind of built in. It didn't increase in downtown Toronto the same way it increased on the outskirts, certainly in Hamilton and Burlington. So that was kind of all priced in already. So I think you're seeing people go back downtown as they're getting back to work and whatnot, and it's kind of mitigating this
And
this
that's
decrease
it.
there.
What do you guys foresee with interest rates? Tell us what you think. We'd love to hear about it. Drop us a comment. Ask us a question. I mean, we're always here to answer.
If you're an
we can always
investor,
pop in and
and if
answer
you're an
too.
investor, I want to hear from you. If you're an investor, are you getting in right now? Are you waiting? Kind of, what's your thoughts on the market here?
All right, now let's move on to our final topic. We want to talk about some of our favorite restaurants in Hamilton, but you've been catching my attention over here. Albert showed up to the office with some treats, I guess, that had just been sitting there looking good.
If anyone who knows me knows that I love to eat, and a colleague of mine, Dave and I, we do this taste test of local Hamilton spots. We've done pizza, we've done cannolis, for example. And I know Justin, you were a little upset. We did the taste test. Justin didn't get a chance to participate. He was a little upset. So I brought Justin here. We've got a couple of cannolis from here in Hamilton. Justin, what do you know about Sicilian cannolis?
Where are these from? The Sicilian. Normally they have a little fruit on the end, though, don't they?
These are just plain Sicilian cannolis. I'm not going to tell you where they're from until the end of the taste test.
This thing's huge.
Yeah, don't compare the size, because one was a large and one was just a standard size.
So am I doing seeing which one's better? I can already tell I'm gonna like the cream on this one.
Tell me about your criteria. What are you looking for in a cannoli?
So for a Sicilian cannoli, I'm more of with the Venetian cannoli, right? That's more what I like, the big flaky pastry.
Wow.
You know,
you're the only one in the world I've ever met that prefers a Venetian cannoli.
You think so? I love them. I love them. So but if you're eating Sicilian, right? Yeah. I guess you want to have that crunchy, but you don't want it to be hard. But you want it to have a nice crunch. And then, I mean, it's all about the filling, how it tastes. I can tell you right now, this one already looks like it's going to be a little bit better. I can just tell by it, but we'll dive in. That's good. You're not going to tell me where that's from, eh?
I'll tell you where it's from at the end. Once you choose, I'll tell you where they came from.
Otherwise,
we don't want to spoil it. It's got to be a blind taste test here. We do everything by the book.
I'm chewing away on this. What's your favorite restaurant in Hamilton? Where do you like to go?
You know what? My favorite restaurant, it's pretty clear. I love Born and Raised downtown on James Street. And the reason why I love it, it's got a good atmosphere. It's right downtown. It's Italian food, but it's interesting Italian food, right? And it's got good portions. So that's kind of my number one spot. If I got clients that are coming in or new clients that I want to take out, that'd generally be my go-to spot.
Born and Raised is good. I've only been there once, years ago. It's a good spot, though.
Well, where do you like?
I gotta be honest, you and my wife, we go to the Mule a lot.
Oh, the Mule's good.
On King William there.
Tacos.
That halloumi taco. Then you gotta get the Bulldog margarita. Don't just get the margarita, get the Bulldog margarita.
Yeah.
That's friggin' good.
Honestly, we've got the best.
I tell you right now, this one, I didn't think this one tastes better. It doesn't look as appealing.
No kidding.
I'm loving the flavor of this one. So where are these cannolis from? Who did I just?
No,
they're both delicious, by the way.
So we did.
This one just
we did the local taste test of the local spots in Hamilton. The one that won the taste test, which to me it's a fantastic cannoli. It's La Bakerie. So this they're on fennel. You can. I love the shell, the red wine shell and whatnot. Actually, the one you like the best, though, I'm shocked because to me it's not even close, but. It's Fortino's.
Fortino's. There you go.
Fortino's.
That's where I'm getting my cannolis from now on.
Fortino's. They're taking over the pizza market because Fortino's pizza is actually
I had
fantastic.
Fortino's pizza for lunch today.
Yeah, now you're all over the cannolis too.
Should have got the cannoli while I was there. La Bakery's good though. There, if you guys ever go there, their brownies are amazing too. They sell these chocolate brownies that are unbelievable.
And these are La Bakery's been there since the '60s. Sam's Queenston Bakery in the East End, I also love. They're actually related.
So which cannoli won the taste test? La Bakery.
La Bakery. La Bakery and Sam's for me are kind of the two best ones. Sam's on Queenston and Parkdale kind of area. La Bakery is Upper Gauge and Upper Gauge.
I'm trying to envision that Queenston and Parkdale. That's where that Bedrock Bistro is.
Yeah, so it's just a little bit east of the Bedrock Bistro on the other side of the street.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's Queenston and Reed.
Queenston and Reed.
Yeah, it's kind of
that out.
That's the actual specific corner, but
that's it.
There you go. Yeah, you know what? We like to stay local. I love the Hamilton restaurant scene. You know, I love taste testing. I love food. So we're gonna do more of this stuff too.
That's one of the coolest things with Hamilton is our restaurant scene.
Yeah.
Like I think it's grown so much, especially in the last 5-10 years. I'm sure you guys, local Hamiltonians, have noticed it. Just these great food options that we have. It's spectacular. Yeah. Like you have everything from fine dining, which actually Maxwell's is closing.
Is it? I've never been there.
You never been there?
Oh, the Presties.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've been there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're closing.
Yeah, they're
I guess
closing.
they're putting a condo up there.
Yeah.
So that's that.
The value,
How many? Yeah, they were
value of
what?
property's a little too high. They were
3 generations. How long were they
Yeah,
around for?
I don't know, but they're an institution.
Yeah,
They've
it's 3
been there since I
generations
was a
they've
kid.
been
I actually worked there.
Yeah?
When I was 14, I did a few shifts there.
Yeah, doing what?
Yeah, just
Busboy?
busboy.
Yeah.
Yeah, a few shifts, did some dishes, and spilled some wine on a nice tablecloths,
There you go.
and that was about it.
I never served fine dining.
But here's another question. It's not real estate related. What should we be taste testing here that's great in Hamilton?
You let us
What's
know.
next?
Maybe we
We've
do
done-
like a taco testing.
We've done pizzas. I think I'm gonna do next is probably Italian sausages. Everyone's got their own favorite Italian sausage. That's kind of the next.
It's got to
one
be
we're gonna
Italian with you. Iavarone. It's got to be Italian.
yeah, it's gotta be
Italian
Italian.
sausage, pizza,
No, I love-
cannoli. Albert got to jump into the other end of these cannolis while we were there.
Yeah.
We were talking too long.
polishing
We were having
these
too
off,
much
yeah.
fun talking about it.
Yeah,
Food.
exactly.
I love. We should do an episode just about
Hamilton
like food and restaurants.
I love the food scene in this city.
Yeah.
I love the food scene in this city.
I'm probably out at least 2 nights a week. We're eating at different restaurants across the city.
Yeah.
I love it.
And
It's
honestly,
amazing.
for my Burlington friends and clients, I love you. I lived in Burlington for 1.5 years, and I did not eat in a single good restaurant in Burlington. I
No
came
way.
to Hamilton for dinner every time because I
There
couldn't
you
find an
go.
interesting place. So if you know a good place in Burlington, let us know that too.
Yeah, let us know. We'll go test it out, see how it goes. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for joining us again this week. We always appreciate your support. Please be sure to subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Always like, always comment. We love hearing back from you. We love your feedback. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll talk to you
Thanks
next
for having
week.
me, Justin, too.
Sorry, yeah, and Albert, thank you for joining
Yeah,
us.
no problem.
But anyways, thanks everybody. We'll talk to you again next week.